Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff, Mosher, and Adam Caplan for another Inside the Birds presented by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It is the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. And you know what? I have been thinking of the Jersey Shore lately, Adam. It's that weather that's coming in has been
Oh,
very, very nice. Let's just hope it stays this
yeah.
way. It's nice. It's gonna be good for OTAs when they start on May 20th, I think. That would be nice.
So this week we've had interesting weather. Yesterday and Wednesday was nice after a really bad weather storm for you if you're not in the Philadelphia area. Today looks today looks decent. Friday looks bad. It's this is the most rain. I don't know what the record is
Oh,
for
it's
like a
got to be
two-month
the record.
period.
Yeah.
Right. It's I know you're in Jersey, I'm in PA, but it's been absolutely brutal. But look, it's warmer now. Phil's have been amazing, hitting home runs and hits, big hits, and just think about what June's going to be like when it's really hot for the Phillies. But you mentioned it getting back to the Eagles. We had the rookie camp last week. We got OTAs coming up. It's warm weather. You and I will be at the OTAs and particularly mandatory camp, which is always fun. That's when you really start to hone in on, okay, this is what it looks like heading into training camp.
Yeah, that'll be fun, especially with all the newness. And so this episode, we're going to talk a little bit newness about, we're going to do our annual 53-man roster projection two-part series. We're going to start off with the offense here in this episode. But Adam, I really just want to draw attention really quickly because you talk about the newness. Kenny Gainwell was on a podcast. I don't even know the name of the podcast. He made some headlines, I suppose, about saying last year's team guys weren't even connected from top to bottom. Guys weren't talking to each other. The locker room wasn't good. That's all stuff we talked about last year. I know, I was listening to, our friends on Sports Talk Radio, and they were saying Kenny speaking out of line, and he shouldn't have said that. I don't think it was. I don't think what he said was either new or out of place for a reserve running back on the team. And Britton Covey said some very similar things on Radio Row at the Super Bowl week, and it's not like he got in trouble with the front office. I mean, until the Eagles get out there and start reversing the last month they had of the season, last 2 months, then those questions are going to be, present. And I thought Kenny was just speaking honestly. I don't imagine there'll be any repercussions from what he said.
Look, Britton Covey said what he said during the playoffs, during the Super Bowl week, and he was just speaking honestly. I know, because what happens is some people say, "Oh, well, these backup players are not supposed to say anything; they're not allowed to talk." They're just speaking their mind. I mean, would you rather them lie?
Yeah, and he didn't name names. He did it
Yeah,
he didn't
exactly.
say, this guy was being a real jerk or that guy wasn't talking to that. He just said, look, we had people who were barely talking to each other. It was a bad atmosphere from top to bottom. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I thought that was and then in other odd Eagles news, I don't know if you saw this. This has got to be worth a mention on this podcast, right?
All right.
Did you see the congresswoman from Northwest Ohio who on the House floor gave a shout out to Quinyon Mitchell for
Yes,
being Toledo?
I did.
And first of all, he's from South Florida. She's talking about how
Yep.
proud the Northwest Ohio community is. I mean, yes, he went to college there, but I don't think I've ever seen that before.
That was
I was
wild.
just amazed.
And for not transferring, I know that was part of the thinking there. It's interesting with Mitchell. The first time I heard about him with some scouting people around the NFL back in December, you
Mhm.
started getting there was the buzz started happening. And then the question was, well, wait a minute, why did he's from Florida? Why would he go to Toledo? And when we started digging in back in March and February on him, I never got a straight answer. It was never a negative. You just wanted to know why it's like with the kid the Eagles drafted in the third round, Hunt, who played at Cornell. Well, the knock in scouting circles was, well, wait a minute. Why would he transfer from Cornell? Why would he go to a school like Houston Baptist, which is even a lower level of college football? And my thing was, well, wait a minute. I know scouts are skeptical, but if you look at his background, it was just he was looking for an opportunity. From what we understood, we put this on our show a couple weeks ago. That school recruited him. He didn't recruit them. They found him. So I think sometimes when a very talented player goes to a smaller school, the immediate thought is with people, oh, well, he must not be that good, or he must not have been highly recruited. Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Let's get better information then, because man, scouts sometimes or general managers, personnel directors, their first reaction is, well, if a guy is a big time talent like that goes to a small school, there must be something wrong. Like, I don't know about that.
Yeah,
You
no, I know. And plus, first of all, there are Florida kids all over college football rosters all over the country. And secondly, he wasn't a 5-star. I think he was a 3-star guy who was also a running back in college. So they weren't exactly sure him coming out of high school where his best fit was. I don't want to call him
right.
a late bloomer because he was pretty good in his college career and he did become a corner right away. But it wasn't like he was a 5-star guy where Miami and Florida State and everybody were not. He just wound up going to a small school and really developed there. So it does make it an interesting story. I just couldn't believe it was carried out onto the house floor. I mean, you'd think
That
that
was
that's
cool.
the last thing
I'll
we'll be
give you
talking about in the house, but
that is a cool story. And I'll give you one more just to give you an idea of how scouting is an inexact science.
Mhm.
Flacco, going into Flacco's senior year, from the scouting services, he was given a 7th-round grade. And we know how that worked out.
Mhm.
He became a 1st-round pick. Great senior season. Senior Bowl was okay. It went great. But you saw the obviously the talent level. We know what he did as one of the best Super Bowl runs in NFL history quarterback.
Mhm.
So scouting, look, we have a ton of respect for people in the scouting world. No question, they know a lot more than we do. But I think sometimes they're skeptics about guys who go to smaller schools. Like, well, this guy can't. There must be something wrong with him if he transferred, he went to a smaller school. And you just outlined it. Sometimes guys are not heavily recruited either.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Speaking of Quinyon Mitchell, you can always catch, if you're a Patreon member, our great interview with his cornerbacks coach at Toledo, Coach Corey Parker. It's still up there. People said they really, really liked it. Very passionate interview because he was just so excitable and talking about Quinyon's rise. So that's up on Patreon. We've got our live stream that we did last week. Adam, you'll be doing your Discord chat sometime tonight. Yep, on Discord, 8 o'clock ish. And we want to welcome our new members. And again, you got to get in on this at patreon.com/inside-the-birds for all of the great bonus content. All right. Last thing I wanted to mention was that the coordinators are speaking today. Offense coordinator, defense coordinator. We're talking about Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore at the NovaCare complex. Andrew Pacheco is expected to be there, and he will be writing on InsideTheBirds.com off of those pressers. And as Andrew said to me, Adam, there's a lot of storylines that are going to come out of just those two guys alone. So both new to the organization and have high expectations.
Depends on the questions, though. See, if
Yes.
some of the reporters come with agendas and don't really ask the right questions, the guys who really love football will ask the right questions. So I know where you're going, and I get that. But sometimes, as we've talked about for not only this show, but you and I have known each other for nearly 2 decades. Sometimes you go to these press conferences, you go, how the hell didn't they ask this, 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 and this? And I'm like, shame on me if I was there and didn't ask it. And sometimes some of the reporters just don't ask the right questions where like you just mentioned 2 new coordinators. Okay, you have a history. If you do your research, Kellen Moore, heavy 11 personnel. Where did you get that from? How could this be different? What do you think of this person? There's just certain questions they should be asking, and we should be able to talk off of that. That's why we don't do a lot of the press conference stuff, because a lot of the questions and responses are just so not worth it. Every once in a while we do if we think there's something worth it, but you don't learn a lot out of it. And sometimes the reporters do a great job and they go there and they ask the right questions, but yet the coaches don't want to give you anything. So there is a give and take.
That's the bigger challenge. As someone who, was at the press conferences all the time and tried my hardest to ask the most open-ended questions, sometimes you just don't get stuff.
Can't do it.
No matter how hard you try.
Sure.
All right, let's take a look at the Eagles' offensive roster. Oh, by the way, again, the stuff Andrew will have will be available on InsideTheBirds.com, where he is constantly writing stories, and we are also putting up a lot of content from around the NFL on InsideTheBirds.com. Let's take a look at the Eagles roster, and we'll try to project the 53-man going through each position. First, we'll pause for a moment to hear a word from our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
All right, Adam, let's go inside the quarterback position here. really interesting. I mean, behind Jalen Hurts, you've got some new names, right? And new faces. And obviously, Kenny Pickett, the big trade there. But Jalen Hurts is your guy. He signed for the long term. But this backup picture is a little interesting. I mean, we know what the roles are. We know who's going to make it pretty sure for 1 and 2. But how do you see it unfolding here as we get through the camp?
Yeah, unless he struggles. And then look, Tanner McKee didn't have the greatest training camp, but his preseason was really good. So Hurts is signed through 28, Pickett through 25. Pickett's so cost effective as a backup, about as cost effective as it gets. Former first round pick. I know he's got to prove himself. There's some guaranteed money, but the money, like if he bombs, like let's say Pickett has a terrible camp, it's like if they wanted to cut him, it's not prohibitive. It really is not. So he's got to perform. I mean, they're expecting to be the backup for the next 2 years. And then Tanner McKee signed through 2027. His thing is like he's not real mobile. We know he's got enormous arm strength, is to just show that he's got more than an arm here. And if he does, he'll be on the roster the second straight season. And Will Greer's strictly here because of the scheme, and he knows that he could help the guys understand it better. But look, they kept McKee last year because of what he did. They didn't want the clubs had the other clubs had the access to the game tape, the preseason tape. So if the preseason tape's good again, he's probably going to be here to be their 3 quarterbacks. So I'm going to give the Eagles 3 quarterbacks here. There's a high probability that'll be the case.
I think you're right. I think last year we had gotten used to the fact that the Eagles were going to have a starter, a backup, and then a developmental guy in the practice squad, right? They weren't going to use a roster spot on a third quarterback. Tanner McKee forced that hand because he was that good in the preseason games, as you mentioned, despite not really doing much in training camp. And the one thing that we remember, and I wonder if this will change a little bit because of its second year, he didn't get a whole lot of reps in training camp.
Correct.
Right? I mean, it was really
none.
It was not, yeah, because they were really trying to get Mariota involved in the offense. Remember, they barely do anything at OTAs. They had the least amount, and yet you have a new quarterback in Mariota there. So I do wonder. You have the same situation where Pickett's new to the team. You want to get him involved in the offense, but you got to think they'd want to see a little bit more reps out of McKee in the practices.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. The latter is right on, man. He's got to show more that he's just not a strong arm guy. You got to be able to be. Today's coaches will tell you, a lot of the old school guys will say, "Hey, when I was first coming to the league, I wanted my guy just to be a drop back passer." But now they want these guys to have mobility, and the pocket breaks down, make plays on the run, be able to create a little bit. That's not probably it isn't his game, but at least show something on the run that you can do it. You don't have to be a great athlete, but just show that you can do certain things. Because Pickett is an athlete; he could throw on the run. Though the Steelers didn't really ask him to do that a lot.
Right.
It's really not a battle. I'm just interested to see because Pickett had such a great preseason last year. They're one of the few teams that plays their started significant snaps, and he had such a good offseason, then completely tank it. Though you put the stat out and it's 100% correct. He has a winning record as a starting quarterback. I know that's a little bit of an overrated stat, but he showed an ability to come back when asked to do it in the fourth quarter. I'm just interested in such a quarterback friendly offense like Kellen Moore's. Can this guy actually do it if called upon, if needed?
Yeah, no, really interesting stuff. The question on Will Greer is, does he see it to training camp or is he done by OTA, after OTAs? So we'll see.
I would say,
yeah.
I would say, I would expect him. Remember, now we got 2 preseason games. Hurts probably wouldn't play.
Right.
Now, on your point, Pickett's got to play. McKee's got to play. Because there are only 2 games, they could just decide, we're just going to split the rest between McKee and Pickett. If somebody gets hurt, the other guy goes back in. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only question is, does he make it to the preseason? Right now, I would fully expect him to be here the offseason, though.
Agree. Okay, so let's move on to running backs. Now, real important context. Last year, they kept 4 running backs, did they not? They kept Gainwell, they kept Boston Scott, they kept Rashad Penny, and they kept who am I missing?
Swift.
DeAndre
mm-hmm.
Swift. They kept all 4, but only used 3 really, they only used 2, but every once in a while Boston Scott in there, but Rashad Penny almost never. So you wonder, as you look at the names here that we're going to go through, are they going to find a spot for a 4th? And if they do, would they use this person? Especially now that they've got a guy in Barkley who they're paying so much money to, who's going to be a lead back.
So this is what I find fascinating. Gainwell and Shipley are completely different. Shipley's got better straight line speed. He's really not a speed guy, but his 40 time that at his pro day, he doesn't. I was told he plays to the mid 4.4s, not for the 4.39, whatever he timed. But hey, the 4.39, you'll take that any day. Gainwell's we're done with talking about him and not being the explosive back we thought he was going to be. Okay, I got that one wrong. He's completely opposite of what we expected. But again, he's not getting the football in the pass game like we expected. Now, that's how we move forward here. Kellen Moore, let's go inside Kellen Moore here and how he uses backs. The backs, if you study him with the Chargers and the Cowboys, get the football in the pass game. The question, because Shipley can catch the football, and we know Gainwell certainly can. It just wasn't used enough in the pass game. We know he could grind carries out, but that's not what he should be doing. So the question now is going forward here. How do they divvy up that third down role? Barkley, as you mentioned, has to be a 3-down back because they're paying him to be $12 million a year. He better be. Do they occasionally give Barkley time off? Okay, we'll see. Not time off, but plays off. And will that guy be Shipley or Gainwell? Shipley was a 4th-round pick. He should be on the football team, fully expecting that. And then, on your point, do they keep 4 backs? Ty Davis Price got a really guarantee in his contract. He 1.1 million, 225 is fully guaranteed of that total cash. He's got good size. He's more of a zone runner. We know they play both. They play gap, zone. That's what Stout believes. They believe he's a good fit. So did Kyle Shanahan. He made the call 2 years ago to be that guy who maybe could be a lead back, and obviously didn't work out. And then they made the trade for McCaffrey. But he's a guy that they obviously feel good about. He's got good size, and let's see if he could force his way on the roster as the 4th back.
I think they keep 4. I mean, look, we're sitting here today trying to figure it out, right? But the one thing you mentioned that really jumps out is Saquon Barkley has a fairly significant injury history, and if he were to miss time, are you really comfortable with a 3-person roster,
No.
3-person, just going Gainwell and Will Shipley? No, you need a little bit more veteran presence, somebody who can get in there. So I would see, Barkley, Gainwell, Shipley, and Davis Price most likely. Now, maybe Lou Nichols winds up edging Price, but either way, I would say 4 running backs as well.
Just one thing before we move on to receiver. I learned a lot from dealing with the Eagles in 2017 and looking into the situation with Corey Clement. And one thing that Howie does a really underrated good job of, I remember, and it was that season in particular, the word I got from their OTAs is that Clement was going to make the team. And I'm like, how could you say that as an undrafted free agent? But they were so convinced at how good he was. It was just a matter of not only would he be on the team, would they cut Donnell Pumphrey, which they should have done, but they didn't. But nevertheless, so Howie made it pretty clear to everyone that the best man is going to be on the team, whether he's drafted or not. And that, like, not every GM will do that. They want their guys to make it. Hey, if a guy's drafted and the other guy's not drafted, the guy who's drafted is going to make it. Okay, so Pumphrey, you can't be cut. You got to give the guy a chance. And obviously the next year it was a bust. But this is and we've seen it with Herbig and Suapeta, and they've got a good history of developing these undrafted free agents. So on your point, who's to say? I know Kendall Milton doesn't run very well, but he's a power back. On your point about Lou Nichols, they could use some size at running back as a backup. So why am I bringing this stuff up? You can't dismiss as you're talking about a 4th back, but it doesn't have to be Ty Davis Price. It could be Nichols or Kendall Milton. If they play themselves on the roster and they all agree, the guy's going to be on the roster. Not going to keep 5, but if one guy kicks ass in training camp, I'm not going to dismiss that.
There you go. All right, let's go to wait, real quick. You mentioned Donnell Pumphrey, and something crossed my head. He was a 4th-round pick that year, right?
Yep.
Did he ever play
No.
in the NFL? Oh, a single snap? No, he did not, right?
No, he went to Detroit. He went to Detroit after he was cut, and then that was it. He
God, that is very embarrassing. When you have a 4th-round pick, not even play, and that's got to be the worst. If you do like pound for pound, value for value, the worst Eagles draft pick over the last 6 years.
Sharif Miller, did he ever play?
Oh, that's a good one too. Sharif Miller. But hell, he was a 5th-round pick, was he not?
4th, I think. I'll double check, but I'm pretty certain he was a 4th.
Okay. I thought maybe he may played in the game. No? Wow, you're right. That's a good one.
I don't think, without looking, I don't think so, but I just remember because he had all the measurables, he had a lot that you like, and he just couldn't get through some stuff, and he just never made it. He was with Carolina for a little bit. He may have played. I don't
Played a
remember
game. He played one game in 2019.
with the Eagles. Did he?
Yes.
Did he? Good for you, man. There you go. You're Penn
Hey,
State.
I just went over to Pro Football Reference.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Was he from Philly? Wasn't he from here?
Yeah, he is
Yeah.
from Philly, and he's a
Gotcha.
Penn State kid. So
Yeah.
that would make Donnell Pumphrey the worst pick
Bad.
by value, right? Even worse than even Davion Taylor got into games. Like
He did. Hell, he actually looked like
it was starting for a little
remember.
while. Yeah.
Yep. In fact, you had some nugget. Was it something like he did really? I remember you had a nugget like 4 years ago, about wow, the light's coming on here.
The
Then he had a
second
handful
year,
of
yeah.
injuries.
Yeah, then he got hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Wow.
even that year, right? He got hurt, he recovered, but then in the
Mhm.
middle of the year, I think they benched Singleton, and they started to play Davion Taylor next to somebody else more, like I don't know, Nate Geary,
I
or
don't know.
maybe it was they benched
Ooh.
played him next to Singleton more. So it was yeah.
One more thing. So
Yeah.
we've got 3 quarterbacks, and are we going to go with 4 running backs?
Yeah, we're going with 4 running backs.
All right, 7 players for the first through running back,
I
quarterback
got
and
it
running
written
back.
down on the pad here. I'm keeping
right.
count. All right,
Gotcha.
wide
Cool.
receiver. So we know the Eagles are top heavy here. We know they also brought in a lot of names this offseason, both in free agency, the draft, futures deals guys. So the names to look for that we know of: AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. They signed to 1-year deals. Paris Campbell and Devontae Parker. They drafted Aeneas Smith in the 5th round. Johnny Wilson in the 6th round, and then all those futures guys or guys they signed last year: Jacob Harris, Joseph Ngata, Shaquan Davis, and last year's preseason MVP, as I like to call him, Austin Watkins. That's a lot of names right there.
Listen, I want to go 6 here. I'm going to go with the
Wow.
obviously the 2 starters,
Mhm.
Campbell and Parker. Now, the New England, he had an offset on his contract, so the Patriots are paying part of it, and the Eagles aren't paying any guaranteed money. So he's very cuttable if he doesn't look good.
Mhm.
Now, the problem that you have is Campbell has a significant injury history. Now, he's got better positional versatility. They don't have a true number 3. It's just a matter of Campbell's an inside-outside receiver. Parker can't play inside. Campbell has more value to them. Got to stay healthy. We know his history of how much the Eagles liked him. Been there, done that in 2019. We'll move on. But Aeneas Smith is going to make it. Unless he has a terrible training camp, he's going to make it. He's more of a slot receiver, what we call a Z receiver, a move receiver. But he certainly is not a true outside receiver. So now that's 5. If I'm going to give the 2 vets plus Aeneas Smith, Johnny Wilson's going to have competition. He is the one drafted guy. I have Davis, Watkins, Ngata, and Jacob Harris, who's a very intriguing player. Are you going to give him 5 or 6?
I was really struggling on 6, Adam, because I see it as you've got your 2 starters, AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. I believe, based on just what we've heard and how the Eagles like their draft picks, that Aeneas Smith and Wilson are going to find their way onto the 53. So that's 4. I agree with you. You need a veteran outside receiver. So it's going to either be Parker or Campbell. So I put Parker on this because Campbell's really coming off a disappointing 1-year stretch there with the Giants, and I just don't know what you expect. But if I'm making room for 6, is it going to be for Paris Campbell? Is it going to be for Joseph Ngata? I think this group of receivers is going to have a difficult time proving that they belong to have a 6th one kept. Like I could see that Campbell makes it and Parker doesn't, but I don't know that both Parker, Campbell, and the 2 rookies, Aeneas Smith and Johnny Wilson, both make it.
Yeah, and the guarantee, by the way, on Campbell's contract is still low. I mean, he's not making a lot of money. Very cuttable contract if he doesn't get the job done. But they're going to need some veterans. I mean, that's just as backups. If one of the starters gets hurt, I mean, AJ Brown and Devontae Smith have been so durable.
Yeah,
knock on wood.
Plus, we're kicking Britton Covey out of the picture here, by the way.
We're going to get to that. Now we're going to get to him. We're going
Okay.
to get to him when we get to special teams. But that on your point with Covey, he's in a tough spot. They now have competition for punt returner, which they really didn't last year, and it's going to be hard for him just to be kept as a punt returner. And he's phenomenal, one of the top guys in the league, and we know he could play slot at this level. The guy's got great quicks, but he's going to have competition. So I'm right. We gotta sum this up.
So wait, real quick though. All
Yeah.
right. So let's say you go Brown, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Devontae Parker are your top three receivers, right?
Okay.
The two rookies, Aeneas Smith can play special teams, but as a returner, not as a core special teamer. Johnny Wilson, I'm not sure what he's going to give on special. He's got a strange kind of body.
I know.
Like I feel like if you're going to keep a six, it might be a Nagata, might be someone that you think you can use on special, maybe a Watkins, other than just returner, right? I mean, there
We'll
might
look
be a
into it.
bigger
Yeah.
body guy or a Harris. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm tempted to say five right now, but if you want
Oh,
to go six,
but
you can go six.
by the way, on Jeff's point, that's exactly how these discussions go with personnel people. The coaches will meet with the front office and they'll narrow it down to their last couple spots. It comes down always comes down to special teams.
Mm-hmm.
You better be able to play teams, as they say. If you're a fringe guy, and these backups are fringe. I wouldn't call Nia Smith a fringe guy, but
Right.
Harris Wilson has got a ton of ability, but he's got to prove himself. And Gatto is a star of training camp, but just doesn't run well enough. Shaquan Davis, they gave a decent guarantee to. Watkins, they like. So it's going to be interesting. I'm going to go. Would you agree? I'm going to go with the two rooks.
Yep.
And
Two
that's
rooks.
I'm going to go with the four vets and the two rooks of six.
So you're going
The
to
two
take six. All right. I will, for your purposes, we'll go with six here, and that would give them 13 between
Okay.
quarterback, running back, wide receiver. We'll revisit this discussion down the line, but I just think that the talent isn't there, just based on what we're looking at now. But you never know; somebody could really shine in camp and force the Eagles' hand there.
Sure.
Tight end. All right. Another really interesting position where you have your starter, your top heavy, right? You have Dallas Goedert. And then behind them is like a mixture of a whole bunch of different guys.
It's not good. And it's never about quantity, it's about quality. That if you want to learn the NFL, talk to any coach, they'll tell you the same thing. I've taken these comments from coaches. So right now, here's the problem. Okay, Uzama's a wide tight end. They guaranteed over half of his $1.4 million salary, but it's cuttable. What's that?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's cuttable, but it's sort of also significant to me that they guaranteed half of it.
Well, they need him badly because without Jack Stoll, who was their wide tight end, this is why Uzama's here for one reason, to block. He can catch. The guy's been in the Super Bowl before with the Bengals, but he's here to block. He's a veteran. You need a veteran.
Mm-hmm.
Albert O re-signed for a year. Calcaterra is signed through next season. E.J. Jenkins is signed for 2 years. Tungiai's back, and McClellan Castles is here as an undrafted free agent. This is a mess. I mean, right now Uzama's got to make the team. I mean, unless he's really bad, he's going to make the team. I'm not keeping three, man. I know people are going to say Calcaterra's got to make it. They need to. Let's put it this way: before we move on, they got to show us first. They got to show the coaches, the front office, those of us who go to practice. Show us you, other than being a draft pick, you earn your way there. And last year, you saw without Goddard, 2 years ago, they Jimmy rigged it pretty well with Stoll and Calcaterra. Wasn't too bad. Mm-hmm. Last year was not as good when Goddard was out. So I don't know, man.
I think I like your point. If your point is that they're not keeping three, if these are the options, I'm with you. I have a hard time thinking they're going to go into a season without three tight ends, unless they get creative with the practice squad and just activate a couple of different tight ends, which is very, very possible. I think the contract for Uzama, the way it's got, 1.37 in total and half of that guaranteed, makes me think that they want him to win the Y, but they may have some question marks about his health and how good he's going to be coming off that injury last year, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's in his 30s now. He's made a lot of money in his career.
Yeah.
He's just the one guy with experience. Alberto he's done very little in his career. I mean, he can run, but he doesn't block very well. Calcaterra's tried to block. He's made an effort. He's not that good in that area. Tungiai can. That's why he's back. He's a Y only. And McClellan Castles, I was told, is more of an F tight end, a little bit. You can move him around a little bit. We'll see how well he can block. But in the end, I think it's going to be Uzama to me. That's it.
Yeah, there's not a single guy here that I think you worry about not being able to put back on your practice squad. And then likewise, there's not a single guy that if you have to cut, you're worried about losing him.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go
Two?
with your two right now, but I don't think that I think that if that were the case where they could only really justify keeping two of these guys, they would probably add a third on a waiver, like a release. That I just feel like they would be more comfortable with having three going
I
into
hear
the.
you.
But again,
You-
that's why the practice squad, they've been doing a
That's
great
it.
job of manipulating the
Yeah.
rules there to use those.
Could be
All
a
right.
veteran too. By the way,
Yeah.
just
Oh,
real
yeah,
quick.
yeah, yeah.
Could be.
That's exactly what I mean. Yeah, that
Yeah,
would be a
yeah,
veteran.
yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely see potential of that third guy because this team offensively could just be lights out. I mean, we'll have to see what the two veterans who are going to be backups look like. And we know that we're going to get in the offensive line in a minute here. I know they've got some challenges, but man, just from a Kellen Moore's scheme is really good. It's quarterback friendly. I'm expecting Hurts to have a big bounce back season. This offense could be special,
Mhm.
but we got to get there first.
All right, we will get there. So that gives us 15 players through four positions: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. Let's go inside the offensive line here. Um, Start at center.
Toughie. Good. All
What's
right.
that? Yes.
So Jurgens, obviously, Hennessy, obviously, because he's the backup center as of now. Dylan McMahon's got to make it. He's a smaller guy. He does have positional versatility, but let's just see. Let's hold off and project him to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it's Jurgens and Hennessy, your centers.
Right.
All right, left guard is obviously Dickerson. Keegan has only played left guard. He's obviously drafted. The Eagles and other teams like this player. And your guy Brett Toth, who's back again.
I love how
He
he's
can
my
play.
guy.
I know. No, because you have the best joke ever.
Yeah.
Tell the folks again what, because I literally was tearing when he said it, and boy, it wound up happening. What was it? Was hilarious.
Well, it was a game against Baltimore, and I want to say 2020, which would have been maybe his first full year, actual year on the 53 man. And I said, and they were starting to lose guys to injuries on the offensive line. And I said, listen, if Brett Toth has to get in there and play for you, you're in trouble. And sure enough, he was like literally in the midway through the first quarter. So
Like
and it
you
was his
said it, and he
debut. He had
did.
never played before.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, "Do you know something? Like, how did you know this?"
And
I
guess
mean,
what? They were
anyway,
in trouble. That was a tough one.
yeah. So that's Stout's guy, man. I give him credit. He wants him here, and he does have positional versatility. So,
By the way, that's the game famous for Jamon Brown sacking Carson
oh,
Wentz.
how do you bring that name up? Wow, that's a name that we have not talked about. By the way, Jamon Brown was a decent player elsewhere.
Jamon, yeah, he was until he
What
came to the
happened?
Eagles. I
That
don't know.
2020 season was what an abomination. Wow.
It was.
So Dickerson
Right.
and Keith, go ahead.
Said go ahead. So we have Jurgens and Hennessy definite. Dickerson's
Yeah.
gonna make it. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
Uh,
Keegan,
go ahead. Do you,
I'm putting
so does
Keegan.
Keegan definitely make this team?
Yeah, I do because right now, where are your backup guards?
So I'm sort of looking at it as what's your starting five, and then how many are you keeping after, right? So right now your starting five are Jurgens, Dickerson, Lane, Mailata, and let's go Steen right now.
Steen.
You
Yeah,
know, we
Steen.
are right. So
Yeah.
how many do you think the Eagles keep? Probably a little bit more than normal. There was a time they used to keep 8 because they had really veteran swing guys. Now there's more question marks, so at least 9 and maybe 10. So my next 4 up, I gotta have Hennessy as the first one up, right?
Yep.
Because guards center.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Fred Johnson has to be on it. I mean,
I don't think so.
No.
No. Well, your guy Becton is here. What are you talking about?
Well, I feel like they look at Becton as a swing tackle. Maybe,
Yes.
I guess. Are
And
you
he's
are you
over him.
100% sure Becton is healthy and productive enough to make this
Yeah.
roster? All right.
Look, they fully guaranteed the cash and the contract's only 275. There's an upside to 5.5 if he hits a lot of the incentive break. We'll get the playing time incentives at some point. We'll look into it, but you could cut a guy for 275. But look, they're expecting him to be the top backup right left tackle. And I know you the note that they make cross train the guard, but
That's
the bottom
fair.
line is he's a tackle.
Yeah, that's fair.
So-
So you're right. Hennessy would be your 6th guy. Becton is
Yeah.
your 7th guy.
Yeah.
Your 8th guy is going to be a rookie that you drafted, so that would be Keegan, right?
Keegan,
Guard. Now you got to note that there were some scouts wondering about his durability. Is that what the case?
Just upper body. There was some concern from a scouting standpoint from upper body, beat up a little bit physically over the years, but man, he's tough. He's making it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
would. Yeah, he.
So it's funny because he and the other kid they drafted, McMahon, couldn't be any different, right? McMahon is a very good athlete who's a little undersized. And as one scouting source put it, Keegan is not, he's not in there for athleticism. He is your typical
Yeah,
offensive line, Michigan offensive lineman. He's a mauler, he's a grinder, and he's going to fight you tooth and nail. He's sort of like Runyon-esque in that regard, who
there
also
you
is
go.
a Michigan
There you
lineman.
go.
So it's just
Now,
an interior guy.
yep, he is that. Now the question is the ninth guy. If they keep him, I know you had a note on Kennard a couple months ago. He's got
Mhm.
how much they scouted and all that. He he fits in as a guard who could play right tackle. That helps him make the team. I can't see them keeping 10. It certainly can't see 10. I mean, you never say never. I, I, would you want to go 8 or 9?
Here's the thing. Who is their veteran backup guard? If so, Steen's gonna theoretically start. We
Yep.
reported that Becton's gonna get a look there, but we have no idea if that's gonna work out. If Steen twists an ankle and has to come out season opener, are you throwing Keegan in there, or do you need? Are you
Hennessy.
throwing Hennessy in there? All right.
Hennessy. Oh yeah, Hennessy is a back. He's a guard center. He
He is,
absolutely
he
can play
is, he
both.
is.
Yeah.
I just then wonder, okay, then what if Jurgens comes in? I'm overthinking it here, but I feel like they've always had a backup center guard and always had a backup guard or guard tackle, right? Because it's either been Opeta
Uh,
or it's been Jack Driscoll.
well, hang on. What? Okay, your backup guard now. He doesn't. Your Driscoll guy could be Kennard.
It could be. It could be.
That's the guy.
5th round pick. Let's put Kennard in there. Kennard is the
Okay.
number 9. He's
Okay.
gonna make it. I do think he is gonna make it.
Okay.
So that's 9. Now the question is, does McMahon or I don't see Toth making it again. McMahon or Fred
No.
Johnson fourth them into a 10th.
Again, it's redundancy.
You're right.
Becton's taken his. I mean, the fact that
Correct.
they signed Becton, and I totally get it as a former first round pick, pretty high
Right.
pick, by the way.
Right.
Well, now the only way they keep Fred Johnson, I see,
Mm-hmm.
if let's say Becton either doesn't look good or looks good, but he's dealing with
Right.
something that keeps him out for a little bit, where they can't take. They have to have a backup tackle that's got to be available week 1.
I agree.
You know?
This is an either or situation. I
Yeah.
agree with you. It's either Becton or Fred Johnson. It's not both. That's correct.
Correct.
So that
Yep.
gives us 9. Do you want to keep it at 9 or do you
I'm gonna keep it at 9 because
McMahon there as a 10? Okay.
we're gonna reserve again. We're in May now. I know people like these roster shows. We're looking at our traffic last year. They do pretty well, and we appreciate it. But if you want to hold us to this, I mean, come on, man. It's May. People love to take shots at this. You said back in May. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, it's May. Would you give us a break?
Projection.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. That's another one. Yeah, exactly. Anyway.
I'm comfortable with that. That would give us 24 at the moment total offensive players. Now you know that we'll get into this next episode. You got to keep a kicker, a punter, and who's the third special team?
Long snapper.
Long snapper, right? Thank you.
Yeah.
So that would give 27, which
Okay.
means it leaves 26 for us in the next episode on defense. And I do believe you're right in that the Eagles typically keep a few more defensive players than offense because they've always rotated heavily at that edge and defensive. Last year, they kept 7 freaking defensive tackles.
Unbelievable.
They may have actually
really
gone 27-23 last year when it came to defense.
The funny comments we got from other teams, like it was just really funny. Like, what is Howie doing? I'm like, hey, search me. I don't know. It's like, and then they traded Street to the Falcons, but it's just kind of funny.
Right.
So yeah, but you know what? They wound up needing him, over time. And we know BG, we'll talk more about the next show. I know he's 36 now, but he could play a little bit inside if you need him to. And that does play into it sometimes, but they say in today's NFL, the more you can do, the better chance you have of making it. So, do you want to do the returners? Or you want to save that for the next show?
I would say like at 24, if we added someone like Britton Covey for return, that would be 25, which would enable us to only keep 25 defensive players. But Adam, I just think that with Aeneas Smith making it, with Cooper DeJean as a potential punt returner, with Isaiah Rodgers, who we'll talk about. I just don't know if Covey makes this team. I think there's too many guys now with return ability, and his size and dimensions don't allow him to compete for a full-time number 3 slot position. I just not with what the Eagles have added this offseason.
The only thing I would add to that is, and I know Anaya Smith is sort of in the same boat. He's a slot receiver but what he has is the ability to play the move position, the Z, whereas Covey does not. He's strictly a slot receiver. So and he's pretty small, but tough guy, no question, and been a great story of development. But you're right, and I saw the YouTube comments. People are right. I mean, I totally agree with the comments there. That no longer his own scholarship. He's got to show he could play other positions because he now has competition where he didn't really. With DeGene who could do it, and I Smith who can do it, and then the kickoff returners. We'll talk more about this in the next show. And that Isaiah Rodgers, boy, that, and I know he's got competition at corner now, so he's certainly not a lock to make it. Not that he ever was. But the dude's got straight line speed, man. That matters because you need that in today's NFL. And boy, we talked about how slow at times they looked in the back end last season.
Absolutely. All right. I have one exercise left out of this 53-man roster projection that we'll get to in a second. First, we'll pause to hear a word from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter makes sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you hop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Jeff sent you. You will get a great deal. All right. I want to just now look back here and say, look, we kept 24 guys on offense.
Okay.
Is there somebody, if we were to make a list of a few guys that I don't want to say we overlooked, we went through everyone, but that might bump somebody else off? We've talked about Covey, maybe at wide receiver. We can't underestimate his ability to come back and show something. Is there anybody on the O-line or at tight end or receiver, whether it's Albert?
Well,
who was our second tight end? It was Uzama, right? So are we underestimating maybe Calcaterra?
See, he's the athleticism they could use, but man, I know he's only 6-round pick, so you're never, the 6-round picks are always expected to be backups, not even compete for a starting job. But boy, the third guy's got to be able to move. Like and we know Goddard could block, so they'll be okay there. They need one guy who's a pretty good athlete, but you can put the guy in the practice squad, and as you outlined earlier, which they've done before, they've carried 2 tight ends before and called it third tight end up from the practice squad for game day over the weekend. So, who like Jacob Harris is a guy that, man, he's got so much ability. He tore the ACL years ago with the Rams. Or I remember talking to them; they were so happy with his progress before he got hurt. He's really unique. He could push somebody off the roster. I'm looking. I mean, the undrafted kids, Gottlieb, however you say his last name.
Well, I'm thinking this, right? If let's say Dallas Goedert gets hurt, which he's been prone to do, misses three or four games, you've got Uzama who can block, but he's not exactly a great pass game mismatch. So would you want to keep Calcaterra? I know I was being kind. Would you want to keep Calcaterra for those instances where you're going to go either 4 wide or spread 3 and 1, but you want your one tight end to be more of a pass mismatch?
I'll give you this. I'll outline this before we get out of here. What they can do is, let's say they waive Calcaterra and Alberto. What are the chances both are going to be claimed?
That's a good point.
Whoever gets not claimed, bring them to the practice squad. I mean, you could bring both in if you want. They got to have an athlete. You and I are seeing this exactly the same way. It's going to be a numbers thing because defense, I've just started to go through this, and I'm not saying they're deeper than last year, but they've got some better back end guys. Their back end of their defense was terrible last season. I mean, they just couldn't get that guys would flash and then go in the tank. Guys would show well, and then they wouldn't get another chance. So now you got the real Vic Fangio here. So we'll see what happens. But the defensive one is going to be fascinating because they're just this off the ball linebacker thing. I can't believe I'm saying this. I cannot wait to see the competition in OTAs and so forth because the talent level's better. I know there are issues, but hey,
Yeah.
man, competition brings the best out of people, you would think.
Yeah, I can't wait to do the defense. And the last thing I'll leave you with this is this exercise, which was very fun, sort of opened my eyes to the newness of the offensive line. Like, when's the last time we've talked about a new center and right guard? It's got to be like 15 years. It feels like 2 new starters on the offensive line here. And then when we start talking about depth, we're not mentioning the same names as we used to, whether it was Herbig or Driscoll and then Driscoll and Opet. It was always like every year for the last 3, 4, 5 years, you were getting used to the same names. Now we're talking about guys like Kennard, Keegan, Becton, Hennessy. This is a completely remade offensive line. Like, it's kind of crazy, Just
But
that one's got his work cut out.
his 11th year with the club, yeah. And I was almost going to mention, oh God, now I forgot the name. Oh no, Matt Pryor, who somehow has been one of the highest paid backup offensive linemen in the last 10 years. He always seems to make good. One year, the Colts paid him $5 million. When I got those contract terms, I'm like, this can't be right. This can't be. Matt bleeping Pryor, good for him, man. Nice story. And he was, by the way, he was another guy that no one thought could play guard. No one thought he could play guard.
Correct.
That's what I'm learning, man. Some teams say no way, but Jeff Stoutland sees it differently. And by the way, he's right most of the time.
And he's 6'7". So like the whole idea that Becton at 6'8" is some like kind of no way you can. I mean, it's just 1 inch taller. It's really not that crazy. All right, good stuff. This was fun. I really enjoyed it. We're gonna enjoy even more doing the defense because there's a whole lot of competition going on at a lot of spots there, and we'll cover that on the next episode of Inside the Birds. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the Birds. Be sure to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation.